Well, I got scammed a lot. There was this service called eGold, and eGold was like online gold. It was like PayPal, but with gold backing the money. PayPal didn't understand what was happening because there was a bunch of us that were started making all this money. 2 Bitcoin a day, that's so stupid. Like in my house, in my basement, mining 2 Bitcoin a day. Like this, what a waste of time.
I love the stories from like the early days when just people are talking about it in terms of just like, oh yeah, I was just mining a couple Bitcoin. What a waste of time.
Yeah.
Today, we have an incredibly entertaining conversation with Brad Mills. Brad has an inspiring story of how he went from poverty to becoming a successful entrepreneur and angel investor who supports value-based Bitcoin companies. I'm amazed by Brad's journey and think you'll learn a lot of valuable lessons from his stories. During the conversation, Brad discusses some never-before-told stories around multi-level marketing and internet scams that you won't want to miss. You hear the true first-hand experience of the American dream from an entrepreneur who took a lot of punches to learn the lessons he shares with you in this podcast. These key insights helped him predict the collapses of the crypto behemoths like BlockFi and Celsius, which he called many months beforehand. But that's not all. Brad and I also share a passion for nutrition and performance optimization, and we dive into some cool topics around fitness, saunas, and the ketogenic diet that I think you'll enjoy. Overall, this conversation is fun, thought-provoking, and informative. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. I think that a good place to start, the way that I was looking to approach this episode is kind of go through your journey. All the way back, even before Bitcoin, starting almost like from high school. But before even diving into that, I heard that you are on the ketogenic diet, or are you no longer on it?
Not anymore, no.
What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I've always kind of had like I've struggled with sugar and carbs, you know, like it's something from being, I guess, not knowing anything about nutrition and exercise growing up, that I just believed the marketing on the packages of food. So I thought that as I was growing into an adult, I was like buying Harvest Crunch thinking like, oh, it's got no fat in it, I'm eating healthy. And it wasn't until probably I was like 25 or something that I started actually realizing that you got to pay attention to sugar and not fat. And so I just had developed, I guess, some kind of like sugar addiction, or just really struggle with like avoiding sugar. So I did P90X when I was like 24, 25, and I lost. So I got up to like 200 pounds and like 33% body fat at the highest, and I started getting back rolls, and I was like, okay. I went on vacation in Hawaii for my honeymoon, and then I looked at the videos after and was like, oh my god, it's like a beached whale rolling around in the waves there. I gotta do something about this. So I did 3 rounds of P90X, ended up losing like 40 pounds of fat and gained like 8 or 9 pounds of muscle, and got my body fat percentage down to like 14 or 15%. Never quite got to the point where I really was hoping for it with my goals, but I learned a lot about nutrition, nutrient timing, macro counting, things like that, and exercise, obviously. And but then it's like so hard to maintain that type of exercise as an entrepreneur, to put the time and effort into the food and to actually spend the time doing the exercise. So then after that, I started getting into like Tim Ferriss stuff, like minimum effective dose. How do I do like the optimal amount of input to get the, like, not the best results, but like acceptable results, like the 80-20 rule. So I put in 20% of the effort to get 80% of the results. So I tried that for like then on, you know, like there's a couple times where I went back to the gym for stints of like a few months or whatever, but always kind of like defaulted back into like, how do I spend the least amount of energy and get optimal results but not perfect results, and that way I can have something I can live with. And I've tried a whole lot of different things, and I found keto probably like 5 years ago was like being recommended by a lot of folks, not just for like fat loss, but also for health. And I got serious about doing keto when the pandemic first started, because I wanted to, for one, I was expecting there was going to be some sort of like disruption in supply chains. This is like January 2020 when the video started coming out of China. It was freaking everybody out. And all the Bitcoiners were the ones early to it, being like, following the news, the global macro news, being like, oh shit, something's about to happen here. So, and it's funny because the Bitcoiners were also the first to realize that, okay, this isn't as bad as everybody thinks it is, and it's turning into like a power grab and a way to print $10 trillion. But early on, I was like, well, I'm going to try to start doing intermittent fasting so that I can get used to eating less food in case there's actually food shortages. I want to be able to eat less food. I want to optimize my immune system. So I'm going to have not only am I going to do intermittent fasting, I'm going to do keto so that I have no sugar in my body, so my immune system can be ramped up. And I did that for 2 years. Obviously, it wasn't necessary. Like the supply chain stuff was mostly for toilet paper and other things. Not food so much. But
I had a family member that they freaked out because, of course, if you're worried about running out of toilet paper, that's a big issue. So she actually ordered bulk, like toilet paper in bulk from China, of all places, and it ended up getting delayed for a very long time. By the time it came, first off, it was never really an issue, but by the time it came, our family was looking at her like, why did you do this? This was just such a silly decision.
It got here yesterday. She's like a trailer full of toilet paper.
Yeah.
Well, I ended up doing it for a couple years, but then, man, I lost weight. I lost probably 7 or 8 pounds of fat over the years of doing just keto. And the problem with keto that I found I couldn't stick with it. It was, so I have like I said, I struggle with eating sugar and stuff and just sticking to a diet. But if I'm following a specific plan, I can go past the candy aisle and the chip aisle and it won't even register that it's there. Because it's just I'm on a goal, I'm on a path, I have a mission that I'm trying to accomplish, and sugar is not a part of my mission, so I can't even have it as an option. So I can actually put myself in that mindset where it's easy to just shut off, because I know I can go home and have some raspberries. That's my treat, and have a cup of coffee and some 90% dark chocolate and some peanut butter, that will get me by. But if I'm doing something that's just you have to eat healthy, then when I see the candy and the chips and whatever, I'm like, well, I can have a little bit of that because it's in my macros. I can have 40 grams of sugar so I'll just have a little bit of that chocolate bar. So it's actually if I let the temptation sort of even creep in to be an option, that's when I sort of overindulge and my defenses break down over time, and it's very difficult to stick with. But doing keto, it was I just can't eat more than 20 grams of sugar a day, so there's no way I can have that chip or that chocolate bar or whatever.
Yeah, I feel like you and I have a similar type of mindset in that, where it's when you set your mind to something, that you're going to be doing this diet, it's a lot easier to follow versus having the option to not do it or to have that one little cheat makes it a lot more tempting, I would say. I mean, I was on keto about 5 years ago, and I was very, very serious about it. I've always been a huge health nut, just super into trying different diets, trying to optimize, not only optimize performance, but also just optimizing energy. And I would say from an optimization of energy standpoint, the ketogenic diet was my favorite. I think that there's something about having it where your body goes into ketosis and you're running on ketones rather than glucose that just allows you to go so long. Because I was also doing it with intermittent fasting, so it was keto and intermittent fasting, and my window was 4 hours. So it was the weirdest experience. I'm not sure if you've done or experimented with intermittent fasting, but
yeah, I did that too.
Yeah.
Did you do did you do the proper keto? Did you do dirty keto like I did, lots of bacon and cheese and stuff like that?
Yeah, so I did both. When I first did keto. Yeah, when I first did keto, I thought I was in ketosis, but I really wasn't, and I was like, "Why am I still feeling so shitty?" I just kept, because the keto flu, it takes time to get accustomed to it. But the big problem that I was making with the keto shift was that I was eating too much protein, because I eat a ton of protein to just for working out, trying to build muscle, things like that. And what happens is, and I wish someone had told me this when I first started doing keto, I feel like it should be talked about more, but if you're eating too much protein, the reason why they tell you to keep it between 25 to 30% protein is because too much protein, it'll get converted into glucose through gluconeogenesis. And so what
Oh, I
happens
didn't
is
know that.
someone, yeah, like no one tells people. So all these people, they think that they're going into ketosis, but what they're actually doing is that they're converting their protein. They're eating too much protein and converting it into glucose, and they're not really going into ketosis. So that was happening to me for a while, and then I was
Why'd you
sticking pretty. Yeah, so it actually wasn't because of the diet restrictions or anything. The real reason why I stopped was just because of how restrictive it was outside of like my social life. Really, it made it very hard to eat at restaurants, and also just
Right.
at restaurants you don't really know. They could put the nutrition facts and everything, but I feel like they're not accurate and they're not being held to the same standard. Where I would just feel a lot better when I was cooking my own food.
Yeah, I got that. I had a problem with muscle soreness and cramps, and it just got to the point where I felt like I was like losing muscle continually. And even though I was trying to exercise, I was trying to go up in weights, and I just couldn't because I was starting to get like chest pain and like forearm pain. And I tried all the different minerals and making sure that I was properly loaded up with the electrolytes and all the different stuff that you're supposed to do. And I've noticeably after a couple of years got weaker, and I couldn't regain the strength. And it was like trying to lift a tire or something like that, or trying to just do anything that required a little more strenuous activity would like strain on, I don't know, chopping wood for the fireplace or whatever. I'd always get these muscle cramps. I'm like, this is not sustainable. So unfortunately for me, the keto thing just didn't work in the end. But so I'm still on the journey. 40 years old now. I'm still on a lifelong fitness journey. What am I doing now? I'm doing VR boxing right now. So I'm kind of in this
Oh,
routine of
very
using
cool.
the MetaQuest Pro, the one with the augmented reality. And there's this app, Supernatural, and it's kind of like Beat Saber, but it has targets that it integrates a lot of like squatting and lunging and stuff like that. And you do, you get up a pretty good sweat. So getting into pickleball, got to get back to the gym though.
Pickleball. Yeah.
Gotta get back into weightlifting. That's my goal. This next phase of my life is to try to get back into the shape that I was at the peak, which was like around 10 years ago. So I got a personal chef now that's like cooking all my meals for me. It's my sister.
Okay.
I hired my
That's
sister
awesome.
to cook healthy meals for my family. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, one of my best friends actually is going through a similar experience right now. He's in the boat where he's always going back and forth, been trying to like finally get in shape. And the biggest thing for him was really just having his sister start to prepare his meals
Oh,
because she
awesome.
eats super healthy. Because like working out at the end of the day, it's a big part, of course, especially if you're trying to build muscle, then you need to lift. But really, if it's just about like body comp, like body fat percentage, trying to get that to drop. It's just like all in the diet, really.
It is. It's a lot of it, yeah. And that was the toughest thing for me, too, when I was doing P90X, man. I was, like, going ham on that thing. And I was, for the first time in my life, able to do a pull-up. Because, like, when I was in school, I was like, overweight, fat magician kid that, like, didn't really play any of the sports or anything like that. I didn't climb trees or jump over fences or whatever. I'd be, like, going around to find the gate. But I don't know, growing up in Cape Breton, I think it was like a little bit of, growing up in poverty, it was kind of a little bit of, well, that's for like other people, like that stuff, like can't afford to go get the gear to play hockey. Well, actually, I did play hockey when I was younger for 4 or 5 years, but whatever it was like, didn't have the mentality, I guess, to think that like, oh, I was an athlete or I was a sports person or whatever. And then it wasn't until I did P90X a whole lot that I was like, you know what, like this is awesome. I love playing sports. Sports is so fun. So
Yeah.
even though I'm not the best athlete, I love just getting active, and that's one of the main reasons too why I want to get fit again, is because I want, I don't have any goals to be like a bodybuilder or anything like that, but I just want to be able to have fun and be vibrant, and be able to do pull-ups and push-ups and cartwheels and headstands and stuff like that. Like keep doing that as I get older.
Yeah. So you mentioned, I didn't know that you were into magic. I went through a short period of time. I'm sure that you were much better than me, but I just went and started learning a bunch of card tricks. So you know that they're the
Nice.
like the easy ones that take absolutely no sleight of hand, where it's like, okay, well, you just follow these steps and then they're not going to realize, and then you'll know exactly where the card is. But
Yeah,
then
yeah.
when you started going, I started watching some of these videos with like David Blaine and just these crazy magicians doing these wild card tricks, and just my brain, I just like could not compute. I'm like, what is going on here? Like, how are these people doing it? Magic isn't real. And so
Yeah.
I was looking into it, and then you can find anything online, YouTube, and so I started learning these tricks, and then started learning about like the double lifts and just all these different like sleights, and it really is like a lot goes into it. The best magicians, they make it seem so effortless, like, oh, it just happens, but those guys have a tremendous amount of sleight of hand when they're doing that. So my question to you is, when you were in on that and doing it, what was your experience like? Did you go like, just the card trick route, or were you doing any other types of
Well,
things?
actually, so when I was 8, I got a magic kit at a yard sale, and I was like, "Oh, interesting. Okay, I could make like the ball and cup, trick, where somebody makes the, which cup is the ball in, and then you actually make the ball disappear, so like you win the $5 or the 10 cents. Really, it's like, oh, I bet you 10 cents that you can't find the ball, and then you hustle somebody out of 10 cents, go buy some candy. So I was like into those tricks, and then and just for fun stuff like the rope tricks and little like backyard magic tricks. But then my mom was like, "Oh, this is maybe there's a way to like make some money out of this." So she like booked me to do like a birthday party for my own birthday, my ninth birthday. So I was the entertainment at my ninth birthday party, entertaining my friends doing magic tricks. And I liked doing it. It was pretty fun, but then it turned into a business. We started like going around doing birthday parties, going to malls, and like grading day and Christmas and Halloween and different events. The malls would hire us, the local malls, just be like in a half an hour of magic tricks or whatever. And we started doing more and more stuff. We started getting like rabbits and doves and all this stuff, doing illusions.
Doves?
Yeah. We
Okay,
started
so that was one
breeding.
thing I never understood, how the dove, like I've never looked into that trick, so I'm just out of my own curiosity. Like, what could you explain how that trick works?
Oh, there's a bunch of them, man. We did like rabbits disappearing and doves disappearing and doves coming out of hats, and what other stuff do? Oh, and like box like illusions where a dove would turn into a rabbit because there's like a trap door that you can't really tell, and the cake trick where you'd put like a bunch of ingredients in a pan and then you put the cover on it and then you lift it up and there's a rabbit there, or you light it on fire and then there's a
Oh my
rabbit
God.
there. We do all these things. It's just a bunch of like gimmicky sort of like trap doors and hidden pouches and things like that. It's all like sleight of hand stuff. You got to be, make it look like there's no giant bag of doves hanging from your back, but really when you're spinning around, you're grabbing a dove from the pouch and you're bringing it and throwing it. And it's like shit like
Wow.
that. got into so I did that up until high school because it was like a way to make money, and as a young kid growing up in poverty, like on the East Coast where it's like 40% unemployment rate, any bit of money you can get helps. So I remember like we wouldn't get much, but it would be like $10, $20 a weekend. And for me as like 10, 11-year-old kid, I was like learning
Some
about
serious dough right there.
yeah, I'm just like learning about saving and learning about earning and stuff. So I like to sometimes always. It wasn't until probably I was like 30 I realized well, actually, you know what? Like I did have a little bit of an entrepreneurial upbringing, and even though I grew up in Cape Breton and none of my family really had a lot of financial literacy around investing and saving and things like that, and just in general, like taking loans or paying interest, lower interest rates, trying to get lower interest rates, things like that. I did have like my dad was a door-to-door delivery guy. He had his own business where he was delivering like bread and eggs and pastries and things like that to stores and homes. My grandfather was a milkman, and I was a child magician that my mom, kind of instilled a little bit of entrepreneurial spirit in me as a child, even though it was kind of, as a kid, I was pretty annoyed because I would have rather been into like sports or something like that, but I'd spend all my time practicing magic tricks. So I was like, "Oh, this sucks! Like, I don't want to hear this music anymore. I don't want to like." But I learned how to juggle and learned how to save money and earn money. So I guess it instilled something in me that made me where I am now. That looking back, maybe it was good that I got made fun of in high school for being on cable news or on local cable channel 10, the crazy magic kid that
Those are lifelong skills right there. Now, I'm sure a lot of the people who played sports who don't do it anymore wish that they could just out of nowhere just crank out a magic trick out of nowhere.
Yeah, I haven't kept it up that good, but I do have a few that I can pull out of my pocket, like a couple coin tricks here and there that amuse people.
Are you going to be at Bitcoin 2023 in Miami?
I think so. They've asked me to speak, so I'm going to try to go. It's in May, right? So I think I'm going to try to go.
Yeah, if you're there, we'll have to. I mean, you probably already know all the tricks that I know, but I'll have to selfishly
you probably know,
ask you.
I think you probably know more than me because I was doing this as a kid, right? And like I stopped in high school, so.
I learned in college, so I mean...
Yeah, so when you learn when you're older, you probably learn better tricks. Like, I learned cheesy tricks with, like, stupid... What do you think about the knot? Well, it's not really there. Poof. You know, like, stupid stuff like that. So, you know, a lot of my tricks were, like, pretty cheesy, so I never got into really doing impressive magic. So, I more so...
Mine are all with, like, a deck of cards. The one thing that actually that I learned as I was doing it is, you know, there are certain card tricks that you can just do with the deck, but then there are others where you can buy like these special types of like almost like props, but they seem like a normal deck, but they're just like trick cards where like you do crazy stuff where it's like you're actually moving like the ink on the card, but you do it seamlessly.
I got into those when I was like in high school. Like I started doing the trick decks where you'd memorize the pattern on the back of the deck and then you could guess anybody's card and like do crazy tricks where you just like pull the card out of the deck and because there's like a perforated edge on one side of the cards and you can like reverse the thing. I got into doing those like sneaky card tricks. What I used to do too was pretty funny. I used to just like have fun with it. Like I had this trick where it was a magic light bulb that whenever you touched a piece of metal to the bottom, it would light up. So I carried around in my pocket all the time in high school, and whenever someone would come up for me and, hey man, you got a light, because they wanted to smoke a cigarette, I'd pull out the light and I'd light it up and like, yeah, here. Like, go on, bud. I want a lighter.
Yeah, he's like busy trying to like feed his nicotine addiction, and you're here like doing magic. Yeah. Yeah. Well,
and there was also a cigarette trick I would do all the time too. There was this paste that you could get that would, it's like for effect. When you rub it, I wish I had some on me. You could see it, but when you rub your fingers together, you do it like, you know, inconspicuously, and then when you lift your fingers apart, like it's smoke appears.
Oh,
it's this
wow.
really crazy chemical. So when people would come up to me and, hey, you got a smoke? I would do that. I would do, and I just puff the smoke out, and they'd be like, what the hell? So I'd always prank the cigarette smokers at school. I'd either give them a light or give them some smoke.
Yeah, like, I mean, you're like probably just literally. Like, they would just probably start coming up to you just for a show, just like, yo, you got to check this guy out. Like,
no, they started stuffing me in lockers, actually.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not as fun. That's
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. But it really does sound like you've had like not only just an entrepreneurial upbringing, but you also, I think, were naturally inclined to it. And I do have to say it's incredible to hear, because I was the same way. I wasn't doing magic at that time, but it was the same type of thing where I was just always asking, like, okay, like what could I do here? Like make a business, make a little bit of money on. So I did some things that like I was even... A very easy one, instead of the lemonade stand, was I would do like water. So I'd go to these like sporting events where the lines were always so long for water, and I would just like set up. I mean, it probably isn't legal. You probably need a permit for that. But as a little kid, like who's going to tell this little kid to like stop selling water when everyone's thirsty? So I was doing that. I was doing monkey bread,
Nice.
where it's like baking stuff and like selling it at the park. Just like the most ridiculous stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah, looking back, it's funny. So when you said, oh, make like $10-20 on the weekend, I was thinking back, and I mean, it doesn't, obviously now it seems like nothing, but back at that time, I mean, when you don't have any money as a kid, because kids just don't really have money, you're like, okay, well, I went, delivered some value, and now I have something. And I think that's almost like the entrepreneurial inclination, like the entrepreneurial brain, where you kind of see a problem, you solve the problem, and know that if you're solving someone's problem, you're going to get value for it, and then ultimately you can do whatever you'd like with that money, that value. As a kid, I wouldn't have been able to articulate it in that way, But at the end of the day, I think that in a weird way that upbringing almost like leads to Bitcoin at some point, like the value for value outside of the clown world.
If you start to value money or just, doing work and earning value, like you said, whether it's money or like a lot of kids today, it's virtual items. So game currency or skins or whatever. Like a lot of kids are like, oh, just give me some Fortnite bucks, or just, give me, I want this new skin for my whatever game. And like the neighbor kid came over yesterday and he was like, can I shovel your driveway for $5? I'm like, yeah, sure. Like, what are you saving for? And he's like, oh, I'm trying to get a Fortnite skin. I was like, how much is it? He's like, it's $30. So I was like, oh, okay.
Oh my God.
So, and the other guy, so it was like, kids are learning now to save up for things I think that are kind of like stupid, but like whatever, they're learning skills. They're going to work. They're going to get what they want. Eventually they're going to learn that that's not really that valuable and they should save for something else. But I remember when I was like 10, 11, I'd have like $200-300 saved up from working all year doing magic shows for birthday parties and stuff. I would spend probably because I grew up Mormon as well, like during that time. And it was like, my parents got divorced when I was young, like 5 or 6. So my mom the missionaries came one time, like, hey, you want to join a cult? And she was like, yeah. So we joined the Mormon religion when I was like 8 or something like that. So like half the week I'd be with my dad and half the week I'd be with my mom. And like when I'm with my mom, it's like I would do like stupid stuff like magic tricks or whatever and pay my tithing, and I wouldn't be able to drink coffee or black pop because it was a sin, and I'd be learning about tithing and paying your 10% and being charitable and like living a good like holy life and all this stuff. And then when I'm with my dad, it's my brothers, my stepbrothers were like really into like hip hop culture, so like Tupac and and Metallica and all this stuff. So I'd be like like my older brother was like selling hash, and like all these druggy guys would be coming in like just randomly in the night, like, hey, where's your brother? I need a dime bag. I was like, he's not around. So it's just a funny dichotomy between growing up Mormon, learning about tithing and opening up doors for old ladies, and then growing up listening to Tupac about like capping people, and then seeing my brother like ripping off ATM machines and selling drugs to people. Like, oh, I guess there's 2 ways to make money.
Yeah, you got the full childhood right there.
Yeah, it was pretty good. But I remember what I would do with my money is I was excited to pay my tithing. Like, I'm like, yeah, I'm making money. I'm going to give back. I'm going to pay my tithing. And then I would buy myself candy, of course. That was the other thing I would do with my money. So I wasn't really into buying video games or anything. I loved Nintendo, but I was just buying candy. And then at the end of the year, I'd spend all my money Christmas shopping for everybody. So I'd go with my grandmother, and I'd be like, I had this list of like all the people in my family, and I'd buy everybody something. And I just remember being like, thinking like how fun that was that I could buy a Christmas present for everybody. So I did that for like years. It was like my tradition. I'd be like work all year to earn a few $100 and then go Christmas shopping and buy everybody some little thing.
Wow, that's incredible. So I'm curious as to like following like your path growing up. You went down this what I would call is like an entrepreneurial route. You learned a lot about business, and then I think at one point you went and you started learning a lot about the internet, and you got on that train fairly early. Is there anything in between that I missed that you think was like a true like formative experience for you?
Well, when I got into high school, I realized magic wasn't really the thing that I wanted to pursue. I was a big, huge fan of Jim Carrey, and I was like, I want to be on SNL. Like, I want to be a comedian. I want to make movies and things like that. So I really got into comedy, and I gave up the magic thing for writing plays. So I started like writing screenplays, like comedy horror screenplays and sketch comedy stuff at local like the local theater, and kind of started doing that stuff. Got more into that, which I found more fulfilling than like breeding rabbits and cleaning up their diarrhea all the time. I didn't really like that too much. So that I also started selling hacky sacks. So like
How did you get into selling hacky sacks?
Yeah, I kind of fell into entrepreneurship. All like my whole entire journey is just me falling into being an entrepreneur without realizing I'm an entrepreneur. Like it wasn't my choice to like consciously say I'm going to start a hacky sack business. What it what it was like, because I grew up on the East Coast, right? Like in Cape Breton, where there's a lot of poverty, high unemployment rate. There's this anti-authoritarian bent that you're brought up with. If you're on welfare or whatever, you're moving around, you're in government housing. It's like you kind of feel like everyone's out to get you, or at least like you're like not taken care of compared to like Toronto or even Halifax. Like growing up in Cape Breton, it was like if you're in Halifax, you might as well be from like China or Toronto or whatever. It's like the rest of Canada is just like Toronto, right? Like it was like a weird mentality. It was like everybody else versus us. Like nobody cares about us. So like we're this little island, and like it's not even part of Nova Scotia. It's like it's its own little thing. And so you know, you're always thinking about how to like hustle and how to get
that hustler's
get money.
mentality.
Yeah, it's a hustle mentality. And it was like, so for instance, my first job, right? It wasn't that my family was excited that I got my first job. It wasn't like, oh, congratulations, we're going to throw you a party for your first job. It was when I got fired or when I quit my first job, then it was like, you're getting your first EI claim, congratulations. That was the mentality. I was like, yes, you've made it. Now you can stay home and just, you know, work on your plays or whatever you want for 6 months and get paid by the government. You've made it.
Wow.
So like it was like little things like that, right? So in high school, I got really into hacky sack, and then it was called footbag, you know, the professional version of hacky sack, or like the actual sport where there's like a counting system and a tournament, like world championships, clubs all over the world. So I got heavily into that, and what you needed to play footbag with wasn't the mesh bag with the beans in it. It was a cloth, like a suede or leather or some sort of other like paneled. It was like a paneled hacky sack foot bag with sand in it. So it was like softer so that you could do stalls and different types of tricks with it easier than the cloth bags. So it was like nobody was selling them in Cape Breton. You couldn't really find real foot bags in Cape Breton because it was kind of new. So I went online and I started ordering them, and there was this website called footbag.org where you could create your own club, and like eBay, like you could buy hacky sacks from other people and stuff. So I created a club on there. I called it something stupid like Canada's Best Footbag Club or something like that. And it was just me and like 5 or 6 of my friends, or maybe I recruited like 10 people to join the club and create an account. So then this like manufacturer in Pakistan somehow found my club, and they emailed me, and they thought I was a big deal, and they were like, we would love to send you some samples of our foot bags. We saw that you run this successful club, and we'd love to partner with you. I'm like, whoa. It's like, okay, first I thought somebody's scamming me. Somebody's trying to like scam me. But then I'm like, yeah, I'm successful. I'm a big club. Like, I'll take some samples. I want 30 samples. And they're like, yes, sir. We'll send them to you right away. I'm like, wow. What? They actually believe me?
Big fish in a small pond. Yeah, there you go.
Like, trying to hustle some free foot bags out of this supplier. They actually sent it to me, and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Like, so then I actually asked them, okay, how much are they if I wanted to place an order? And they're like 10 cents each or something crazy. I'm like, I'm buying these things for like $20 online.
Yeah, I was going to say 10 cents is ridiculously cheap.
It was so cheap. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. Maybe it was like 50 cents or $1. I can't remember, but it was extremely cheap compared to what I was paying. So I didn't like the fact that they had this like fine grained sand because I started playing with them. I started bringing them to school, and like I give them out to people to try, and then so I kind of became known as like the footbag supplier for the whole island. And there was like a couple of stores where the skateboarders would hang out, and then I started being like, like playing with those guys. I'm like, hey, do you wanna actually like sell these at your store? I got a supplier now that like will send me.
This is a lot better than the hash.
Yeah.
Legitimate business, yeah.
So then I started like
how
learning
old were you
how
at this time? Sorry to jump in.
I was like 17.
17. Okay.
Yeah, wow. This was right after the magic stuff. So it was like I started learning how to sew because Cape Breton has much better sand than wherever the sand they were getting from. Theirs was super fine grain, but Cape Breton is like medium grain sand. and it's the perfect weight and consistency for foot bagging. So I would start emptying the bags that they'd send me. I'd take them apart, empty the sand, and then I'd boil a bunch of sand so that the salt gets removed, and then dry it with a hair dryer on the stove. I ruined so many of my dad's pans because I was like baking sand to remove the salt so that it wouldn't erode the material, put the sand in the bags and sew them back up. And then I was like, okay, maybe I should just actually start a business, a little business where I would make Cape Breton sand foot bags. And everybody loved them. I think I sold like 1,000 foot bags across the island, and it kind of got me through college. It was one of the things that helped me pay for college, because I was just ordering these cheap foot bags from Pakistan and then filling them up with Cape Breton sand and sewing them up and then selling them to the suppliers and even selling them on eBay. And I was just like sewing them in my basement while I was like, in college. I remember just friends are playing an Xbox or whatever. We're just screwing around, practicing jokes or reading sketch comedy bits, and I'm just sewing hacky sacks while I'm doing it. So it was partially like being a seamstress got me through college, and also I got fired from a call center, and then because it was a really stupid reason they fired me from the call center. But they fired me from the call center.
The
and then
university call center?
Was before I went to college. I was working at a call center in Cape Breton, and it was like tech support for Comcast internet subscribers in America. And so I was like, we were this beta group of midnight tech support people for people who were having internet problems. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'd love to do that more than talking to people over the phone, because I just hate doing tech support with people, but I needed some money. They asked me, because I was really good with computers and stuff, and they asked me if I wanted to be part of this beta group that they were going to test this online chat support thing with. I'm like, yeah, sure. And they're like, oh, it's working all night, though. It's midnight hours. I'm like, yeah, whatever. So I would go, and I'm like, this is going to be so easy because nobody's going to be contacting me. If you're having computer problems, you're not going to be contacting online tech support. If you can't get on your internet, you're not even going to be able to contact. So I'm like, I'm just going to scam these guys out of some money by saying, yes, I'll do this job. Yeah. And it turned out to be that. Like, we had nobody contacting. It was like, there was like 8 of us in a shift, and we'd get like 6 people all night in one shift, like, message us, because there's like, it's so stupid. Like, if you're having internet problems, you're not going to be able to go on the internet to like contact tech support. So I don't know how they let us go for 6 months doing this, but like they did. And I learned about like hacking the like web. I was like getting into hacking. What was it? NTFS or something? I can't remember. It was whatever networking that they were using at the time. I was like learning how to get into the network and send print things on different floors and print things in the manager's office and do all this crazy shit. I would literally sleep for like half the shift under the desk because there was no managers, there was nobody there. It was just they were just paying me to go to sleep and learn how to hack their network. And then so then in the end, they wanted to fire us because it was a waste of money, but they just, I guess, couldn't have cause to fire us all. So what they did was I sent an email out because I had a play, and I was like getting all these dumb chain emails all the time to my company email, and I said, all right, well, I'm going to send an email out. So I sent an email to the entire company, not just our call center, because I was learning about the network, and I got access to like the address book and stuff, and I sent an email to the entire company inviting them to come see my comedy play, and it was like,
and that's how they got you?
They fired me for that. I'm like, wait, you're firing me because I sent an email, not because I slept under the desk for half the shift, and not because I was like snooping around in the network and hacking stuff. Like, all right, fine, you can fire me for sending an email. So then I ended up fighting it with EI and saying, like, these guys fired me for so ridiculous reason. Like, can you pay for my college? And they were like, yeah, you're right. That was a dumb reason to get fired. We're going to accept, we're going to pay for your college.
That's amazing.
So I got through, went to comedy school in Toronto to learn about how to write screenplays and how to do sketch, like really actually do sketch comedy and write.
Oh, wow.
Creative writing, acting, film. It was like a creative sort of arts program that I got accepted into, and that was probably what got me more interested in actually pursuing a career in trying to do something in comedy. And then that took me to college, but then I had no money. Like, I wasn't going to be able to make a movie sewing hacky sacks.
Yeah.
It was like, I was making a few $1,000s a year doing that, but I needed like $50,000 in order to make this movie. So that was my next option. Was like, I'm going to apply for government grants, and I got this great idea. I'm going to go to these business resources or whatever, and look, here's my idea. Give me $50,000. What you mean? What do you mean you won't give me $50,000?
What was the idea?
Just give me $50,000 so I can make a movie.
Oh, okay.
This is my business plan. Give me $50,000.
Yeah.
How's it going to make money? Forget about that. Just give me $50,000. I want to make a movie.
We'll figure that out. Yeah, no problem.
It's a movie. Like, oh, what do you mean you won't give it to me? So obviously I couldn't get any support for that, because didn't have any experience, and my diploma from comedy clown college didn't help too much with getting the free money. So I Googled how to make money online. That was literally, I was like, okay, next step is I got to figure out how to make money. I got to raise $50,000. So how am I going to do that?
There's a weirdly large
number
of times where the right answer is just Google it. Like, you can literally learn anything off Google. I think, this is my own personal view, not saying that I'm right or wrong, but I truly think that in a lot of ways, you really just do not need a college education if your goal is purely to make money. Granted, I do think it's important. Like, let's say that you know what you want to do, and it requires a stepping stone of getting a degree or whatever it may be, then I think it makes sense. But outside of that, it just really, you can learn anything online nowadays.
Oh, yeah.
I guess is the point I'm getting at. And you clearly, I'm excited to hear the story here. So you went on and you Googled it, and what did you find?
Well, I got scammed a lot. I mean, I grew up Mormon, as I said, so I was very naive about people's intentions, and I just didn't really think people would try to scam me. I don't know why I've no street smarts or whatever, but I literally believed everything I Googled. I was like, you can make, stay-at-home mom makes $1,000 a month from your area or doing surveys. I'm like, what? I can do that. Just pay us $200 and we'll send you the information. Like, all right, here's $200. I can't wait to start making $1,000 a week from home.
Yeah.
And I literally fell for all that shit.
There are a ridiculous amount of scams out there. It's crazy.
Well, yeah, that was my business college, business school tuition was just getting scammed a lot by obvious Ponzi scams and chain letter stuff, and it took me a year probably. I got into doing things like harvesting casino sign-up bonuses for online affiliate marketers who were had a relationship with a casino, and they'd go on a forum and be like, okay, I got 50 codes that if you spend $100 on roulette, you get $100. So I get 50, so I'll give you 50 if you do this. And so I would just start doing that shit, and I started making $50 every day or something like that. But it was it's just ridiculous, that's not sustainable. But I got down this rabbit hole of all these schemes on the internet, affiliate marketing schemes and conga lines for people's referral links for freeipods.com was a big one that was popular back then. It was the landing page would be you can get a free iPod, just sign up here and we'll show you how. And then you'd sign up and be like, hey, congratulations, you're one step closer to a free iPod. Next step, pick one of these offers and just complete the offer. And it's sign up for Netflix, or sign up, back then it was Columbia House. It's sign up for Columbia House, or sign up to this casino, or whatever the offers were. And then you're like, oh, right, all I have to do is sign up for Columbia House and get some DVDs? Well, sure, I'll do that. So you sign up and you pay the money, you get locked into a subscription, and it's congratulations, you're one step closer to your free iPod. Now all you have to do is convince 12 friends to do the same thing. Here's your referral link, good luck. Wait,
oh
I didn't know I had to start... So they start sucking you. Now that you have to start recruiting friends to start doing this scam. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, all right, I guess I want the free iPod. So I guess I have to
you're already that far in, what are you going to do? Just give up?
So I'm it was actually my sister that first tuned me into this. I remember one day I was like on the computer and she came running into my room. She's like, Brad, did you know you can get a free iPod on the internet? I was like, no way, that's a scam. You can't get a free iPod on the internet. She's like, yeah, look at this eBay listing. It's like it's for $0. All you have to do is click this link and like it's got all the information. I'm like, what? Amazing. So then I started getting all my family and friends to start doing this free iPods thing. Ended up getting like probably like a free Xbox, a free iPod, a free coffee maker, free TV, free toaster. I had all this shit showing up to the house because I found these online communities of people who were doing affiliate marketing schemes already. And I'm like, look, this shit was free this and free that. And so I started doing all that stuff. And like, I learned actually a lot about affiliate marketing and internet marketing through getting scammed by affiliate marketers and internet marketers. So then I was like, oh, actually there is like something here. If I'm on the other side of this scam, then maybe I can make some money instead of just being the mark for everybody. But I was like, I don't feel great about doing this because I don't want to misrepresent what I'm doing. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to set up my own site where you get paid to sign up and you get paid to read emails and advertisements and stuff. I was like, okay, I'll set up this site, and it was just like I bought a script online and I coded a little bit of it. I'm okay with HTML basic coding, like being able to host my own website and change some images and make graphics and stuff like that. I called it Easy Ad Bucks, and it was just like a paid to do site where people just sign up and they get paid a penny to read a spam email, or they get paid $1 to sign up for a thing. And there was no like referring people to scam them into doing it. It was all like voluntary, like, you're going to get scammed, but I'm going to pay you to get scammed, and I'm going to keep some of the money. Okay. That's our relationship. And that kind of worked out a little bit, but it wasn't making enough money for me. It was making, again, a couple $1,000s, here and there, maybe like 10,000 a year or something. I'm like, okay, I need to make 50,000. Like, how am I going to do that? So I eventually got into, through the affiliate marketing stuff, I found network marketing, like multi-level marketing. Mm-hmm. So initially it was like one of these affiliate guys was doing this gas pill business where he's like, did you know they invented this gas pill that saves you 50% on your gas usage? You just put this pill. It's a new chemical that they've created that's perfectly safe, and you put it in your gas tank, and it actually makes your car burn 50% less gas. I was like, wow, amazing. Technology is so cool. I can't wait to try this out. So I bought these stupid gas pills. I joined this network marketing company. I didn't know what a network marketing company was at the time. I was just like, oh, this is a technology company, and they're paying me to like help spread the word about this amazing invention that they've created. So I literally was like calling up the local taxi companies and meeting with them and being like, this pill actually helps you save money for your whole fleet. Just pop them in the car and let me know what happens, if it's good or not. And I actually convinced a local taxi company to take this and put it in all their cabs. And I was like,
did it work like at all?
I don't think so. I mean, they're like, I think like after a month they got back to me because I was using it, and it was, I don't know, it probably didn't work at all. It probably didn't work.
Like the tiniest bit placebo where you're like, did it?
It probably didn't work. But like what I realized, because they called me up and they're like, it's not worth it. Like the cost of the pills doesn't really save us that much money. I'm like, oh, that sucks. Like I thought this was a groundbreaking technology. But what I realized doing that was, because I was talking to so many people about, because gas prices were high, right? And like coming from Cape Breton and having a poverty sort of scarcity mindset, I'm like, anything to save a buck, people should be so excited about. I was like, this is awesome. Like now you can cut your gas bill down by like half. Like instead of putting $5 or $10 in the gas tank, now you can put $5 in the gas tank. Because like where I come from, you don't fill the gas tank. It's like you never fill, you just put $10 in, right? Probably most kids have that thing when they're high school and college. Is like you can't afford to fill the tank, you can just put $5 or $10 in. But this was a way to like save money, so I thought everybody would be so excited about this thing. And I realized that only poor people care about saving money on gas, and all the wealthy people that I had talked to just didn't care. They were willing to pay the price of gas. They didn't want to risk ruining their car. They didn't even want to bother thinking about the cost of gas, because they were focused on making money, and like they weren't thinking of like this scarcity mindset of I have to save money on my gas, my SO bill. They were just like, I don't care. I'm just going to pay what it costs to pump the gas. So I kind of learned a lesson about value and mindset through failing miserably at this, being scammed by this business. And I realized that if I was ever going to try to like make a business, it had to have incentives aligned. Like it had to be something that was not, if it was for wealthy people, if I was trying to make money, I should be trying to talk to wealthy people about something that they valued. If I was trying to make money for somebody like myself who was like not wealthy, then it should be something that is at a level where they can afford to do it, like a really small cost, and get a lot of people to help to like want to do something at a very small cost. And I realized that like network marketing was kind of a scam. Eventually I learned that lesson because I got into this other one that it was like an affiliate marketing thing, and then another one that was like healthy vitamins and minerals. And actually
did you ever hear of Vima?
Vima's the one that I was in.
Oh, okay, I got roped into that too.
Did you? Okay.
I got roped into Vima, yeah. And at the time, I mean, now I drink like a ton of coffee, way too much caffeine. But at the time, like when I was younger, I just like had never had caffeine. I just stayed away from it. Just wouldn't drink any caffeine. And so I was getting all these drinks, and I'm like, I can't even drink these things. So we were just getting like orders and orders and orders of these energy drinks. And it was
the Verve.
Yeah, oh my God,
I loved that stuff. The Verve.
Yeah, the Verve. My friends loved it. I would just give it to them because I was like, I can't drink this. You guys.
Yeah, eventually I realized that, oh shit, there's so much sugar in this stuff. Like I don't know if this is actually that healthy.
The Verve.
Yeah, I did love the Verve. I think they eventually made one that, because I was complaining to them that it was too sugary, so they eventually made one, I think, with like 8 grams of sugar, so it wasn't too bad. But I remember I got into Vima in like 2004 or something like that. So it was 2005 maybe, so it was like before the Verve even existed. I know that they eventually ended up targeting colleges and like trying to go after young kids at colleges. And like, maybe is that where you found out about it, through college?
No, I think I was in 9th grade at the time.
Oh, really? You heard about it that young?
Yeah.
What like, how did you hear about it? Just a friend or something? Or family member?
It was someone at my school who, it's actually funny, like he's an entrepreneur now too, but he was very entrepreneurial, like minded, and he told me about it. He was trying to get me involved in it, and he's like, hey, you can do this, you can make money doing it. And I was like, okay, like I'll try. And then before I knew it, I was like part of the recruiting, trying to get people on these calls to learn about it. And then I was getting frustrated because the guys who were supposed to be closing the deals on the calls just were never closing the deals.
Oh, they sucked at it?
They just sucked at it. And I'm like, okay, well, if these guys aren't going to close the deals, then I got to figure out how to close these deals because these guys can't close anything. And so it's funny because looking back, I can't even remember. I don't think I made like much money, but at the time it was like an education really, because you start learning like, okay, well, this isn't working, pivoting, I got to figure out how to do it. So then I started hosting the calls, and then the people that I found, they started bringing them to me because I would close it better than the guys who like were above, like who got me in. Yeah. But then eventually I came to a similar type of realization that it seems like you did, where it's like, there are better ways to make money than this right here. So,
well, it was kind of like relevant to my Bitcoin journey, what happened to me with Vima, because I was up until this point, it's probably like 2 years of me diving into this internet rabbit hole of trying to make money on the internet, getting scammed a bunch, literally falling for Ponzi scams. Like there was this thing called 12 Daily Pro back then, which was like a literal Ponzi scam. But it was like the Web 2.0 was this big thing. It was like, oh, the internet, the big advertisers are coming to the internet, and we're going to like allow you, like the little guy, to like take a share of those profits that the big advertisers are going to pay for internet technology or for advertising technology. So all you have to do is invest $1,000, and then we're going to put your advertising shares in with all the big advertisers, and as long as you come to the website once a day and you browse and look at all the other ads, you're going to share in the profits from Google and Microsoft and all these big companies that are advertising with us. Oh, and if you refer your friends, you get 12% of whatever they make. So just get them to put $1,000 in, and they will share from the advertising profits of Google and Facebook. And I'm like, wow, this is so amazing. New internet technology, Web 2.0 advertising is so great. 12%. Like, imagine if I put $10,000 in. Oh, if I only had $10,000. Well, I guess I could make $10,000 by going online and like convincing 100 people to put in $1,000, and then I'll make 12% of their money, and then I'll have $10,000, and then I'm closer to making my movie. So I was working at a trailer decal shop back then. It was like probably 2005 or something. And I was like, it sucked. I just hated working at the trailer factory. You'd get up at 5 a.m. and you'd be just sticking decals onto this trailer and this chemical smell all day long. And then you make like $50 or something the whole entire day working, like breaking your arms, like trying to like do this decal stuff all day long. And then I'd go home and I'd go on the internet for like 2 hours and I'd make like $100 because I was convincing people to like join the advertising revolution. And then after I quit my job because I was like, I started to make like more money just staying at home like for a couple hours a night on forums and message boards, talking to people, AOL Instant Messenger and MSN Messenger, just talking to all these random people that were all trying to make money online to join this thing, because it's like, it's just going to be the next big tech company and they're paying us out. And so I quit my job and I was like, I pulled out like $6,000 from the ATM machine one night and I showed it to my in-laws because I was living in their basement. And they were very skeptical of all my internet scams and getting scammed doing surveys and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. So I showed it to them and they were like, oh, this is actually working? Like, you're actually making money? That's pretty impressive. Can I invest? And I'm like, yeah, you can invest. Everybody can invest. So like, I was just about to get my in-laws to like get scammed along with me, but literally like at this point I was kind of doing my own thing with the paid to read thing, and so there was this service called eGold, and eGold was like online gold. It was like PayPal but with gold backing the money. Mm-hmm. So it was dollars on the internet that you could transfer to pay for these scams. Because really, like PayPal and the real processors wouldn't accept fraudulent companies. They wouldn't accept Ponzi scams. So little did I know all this. I only learned about this after. But there was this eGold thing, and eGold was trying to build itself as like electronic gold. Mm-hmm. And like it was like it's like PayPal but with gold backing all the money. It wasn't dollars backing it; it was gold. So I'm like, well, that's pretty interesting. I didn't know anything about gold, or I didn't have enough money at the time to really care about investing. I was still trying to hustle. I was just trying to make money through entrepreneurial efforts and just hustling online. But I did get a little bit of a lesson about gold through using eGold. And I was using eGold to invest in this 12 Daily Pro thing because they were using multiple different payment processors that were like high-risk processors. I remember one of them was called StormPay. It was based in Russia or something like that. And it was like no chargebacks. That was their big thing. It was like they guaranteed no chargebacks. They wouldn't process chargebacks. And then eGold didn't do chargebacks either because it was like, it's gold. You can't charge back gold. Literally, it was like it was a database on this guy's server. But they like... I kind of learned about gold and censorship and centralization through getting scammed and Ponzi scams and how like rich people value things versus poor people value things. And so then it was like a week after I quit my job and showed my in-laws all this money, the whole thing got shut down by the FBI because it grew so big that the million people or something got into this scam, and the FBI came in and raided it and shut it down. And it turned out it was just this random woman that was like behind the whole thing. Everybody thought it was this big team of Silicon Valley executives that was like doing this business. And it turns out it was just this random woman from like Charlotte, North Carolina or something like that, who was running this Ponzi scam up to like tens of millions, or I don't know how big it got, 100 million or something crazy. It got really big. And then I realized, because people were telling me the whole time, this is a scam. Like, are you stupid? Like, how can they afford to give you 12% a day? Like, think about it. Like, do the math over a year. It's not going to sustain. I'm like, oh, you just don't understand internet technology. This is advertising technology. I was so naive.
New wave.
Yeah. So this is why I'm actually super empathetic to all the people, like the 10 million people or something that came into crypto over the last 2 years and got tricked by Terra Luna and Celsius and all this like 100,000% APY nonsense, and like even like 50 to 100% interest a year Ponzi scam crypto things. Because I was that kid like 15 years ago. I was that dumb idiot that was just like bright-eyed, bushy-tailed trying to make money online, and I got suckered in by all these charlatans and fraudsters and scammers. Like, I was naive. I didn't know that this shit doesn't make any sense. So I totally can relate with anybody that's gotten scammed by this stuff, because I was literally getting scammed by the first wave of this stuff on the internet, thinking it was legitimate, putting my money into it, telling people to like join me in this revolution.
Yeah.
So cringe.
Yeah. Well, I feel like that's one of the ways that you actually learn about it, is as much as it sucks for anyone who goes through it. It's like once you go through it, you really see like eyes wide open. Because I mean, I was the exact same way. Like when I first started with Vima, it was one of those things where, you know, there were adults telling me, hey, this is a pyramid scheme. Like this is a scam. Yeah. And I was doing exactly what you did, where it's like, no, you just don't understand, like just trying to like rationalize it. But then once the like the glasses are taken off, like once everything is just like out there in the open and you see it for what it is, then that's when you really learn. But you mentioned what I really want to dive into in this conversation as well is what happened with Celsius, like Terra Luna. You were one of the people who saw this in advance, and I guess we can see why you were able to see that now after hearing your story. But with all that said, like, what were some of the warning signs that you saw early on, and when did you make the decision to start ringing the alarm bells? Because I think it is one thing where if someone's building a legitimate business, you don't want to ring the alarm bells if you don't know. But there must have been like some type of point where you just had that conviction where you knew, okay, this is what's going on, and I want to start letting people know so they can protect themselves. And the one last caveat before you answer is that I actually, it's a big mistake that I've made in the past. You know, BlockFi was a sponsor of the podcast, and then like I mean, when we were running the podcast earlier, we were running a schedule where we had people recording like a decent amount of time in advance, and like one of the people I interviewed was Mashinsky, and I just like. It's one of the most embarrassing interviews. If you're listening to this, please don't go watch it. But it's me like listening to him, kind of just like eating it up. Him talking about transparency, him talking about all these things where he's going to like show reserves. And I was talking because I'm hearing all this and I'm saying, oh, that's great. Like we need more of that in the space. And then by the time we released it, like not too long after, that's when like a bunch of shit started going on with Celsius. So, I mean, I feel like it could happen to anyone, and I'm just curious as to like what were those big signs that if anyone's listening that they can hear from you that you saw early on.
Well, I think it really does. It does matter that I got scammed a lot. Like I've learned so many lessons through my online entrepreneurship sort of investment career that it just now I see things and I just instantly think it's a scam, and unless it's proven not to be a scam or the person's proven not to be a fraudulent like charlatan, then I will feel safe like talking about it or whatever. But typically like 99% of the time it's bullshit, and it's because of the fundamental lessons that I learned trying to be an entrepreneur online and getting scammed by network marketing stuff and Ponzi scams and all this stuff. Like when eGold got shut down, I learned that centralization actually matters, because it doesn't matter if gold is a better investment over time. Like they were talking about it, like, you know, dollars go down in value, but gold goes up in value. So you should use eGold instead of PayPal. And I was like, that actually makes sense. So I started using eGold for this stuff. And I was like, storing my profits of my, you know, legitimate paid read business, like, you know, $500, $1,000 a month or something, putting it into eGold. And I'm like, this might go up in value over time, but like it got shut down by the feds because it started to grow to a level where it was sort of like competing with the dollar or PayPal or whatever. And they don't want to see people compete with the dollar. So I realized at that point that if something gets traction and it's centralized, it's always going to become a risk for you to have money in there because it's likely going to get shut down or they can exit scam. But like at that point when I was younger, I was just like, I don't know. I was just like, how can people be so dishonest? Like this sucks. I got to get into, and I would just go by vibes. From that point forward, like after I got scammed by the Ponzi scam 12 Daily Pro and like lost my money in eGold because they got seized by the government, and like gold was like a good idea, but like not centralized, it wasn't a good idea. Then I was just like, I'm gonna try to find good people. That was my next thing. I was like, I can't believe I fell for that. I'm going to try to find good people from now on. And then that's how I got to Vima, actually. It was because I started like being more skeptical of what people were telling me. Like if ever I'd hear a sales pitch, I'd have that in the back of my mind. Like, I just got scammed by this 12 Daily Pro thing. I thought it was legit. I thought it was internet advertising technology. So I'm going to be a bit more skeptical about these pitches people are giving me. And so when I heard Vima, it was actually like there was this team of, you know, this is how it works, right? There's like these teams of people in the different pyramid sections or whatever, like compensation sections or binary spots or whatever. But it's basically like they have these teams, and because it's a binary compensation plan, it's like the pyramid. It's literally a pyramid. It's all pyramid structure, but it's people within the pyramid are like kind of competing against people in the other sections of the pyramid. But the higher up you go, you have these leaders in the company that like run sales calls, like you said, or even conferences. So I managed to get put into this like section of Vima's compensation pyramid that actually had like good vibes. You know, it was like this trainer is called Danny Johnson. She was this like Christian motivational speaker girl that was not part of Vima, but she was just generally doing advice for people that were trying to make money from home with network marketing. And this team that I got put into, my leader, my upline guy, was making like $150,000 a month. And he was this like Taiwanese guy from Tennessee who was making tons of money, and he was doing all these calls, and he had a very motivational story himself. I listened to his CD that he had created about like his mindset and suggestions on how to improve your mindset and how to get smarter, not just in Vima, but for life, and like how to start your own business for real. Like, he was actually helping people try to like level up in life in general. And I talking about health and stuff like that. And so I appreciated that, and I was like, okay, maybe I'll give this a shot, because it's not a bunch of scammers trying to convince me of some stupid internet technology. It's actually, it seems more like better vibes. Like, these people seem to be good people. They're Christians. They're like, you know, respecting each other or whatever. I'm not trying to scam anybody. And I actually liked the product. Like, I don't know if I drank the Kool-Aid or not on the product, but like the logic behind the minerals and the vitamins and all that stuff, it made sense to me. And I rationalized that, like, okay, well, this is obviously like the network marketing structure itself can be scammy if you have a fake product like a gas pill that doesn't do anything. But the idea that, like, you know, Warren Buffett invested in Pampered Chef or whatever it was, and like, you know, Herbalife was, I think, Bill Ackman or one of these guys, or I forget who it was, but there was a bunch of like billionaires that were like getting into this network marketing business model if the products were good. And then the like would basically say, yes, it's overpriced because we're baking in the fact that we don't have retail stores, and, you know, you're going to pay more for this product because you're going to make money from selling the product. So it's a sales model more than like it is a scam. And I guess I kind of believed that for a little while. What ended up happening was they told me, like, if you follow the steps and you be your own boss and you actually set your own hours, and like, here, go read these books, How to Win Friends and Influence People, As a Man Thinketh, just all these books about personal development and mindset. I started doing that. I started like dedicating time. I set a schedule. I got a separate phone line that was like my business phone line. I started buying leads from these different like work from home lead companies, $2 a lead or whatever. And I would actually like work. I had a script that, because I worked at a call center, so I kind of got the concept of like following a script and doing sales. So I was like, you know, I guess I'm just running my own little call center at home, and these are my hours, and these are the leads I have, and I have to call them. And the Danny Johnson training was like how to be a good salesperson and how to be professional, instead of just trying to recruit your friends and family, because then you're just going to alienate yourself and nobody's going to want to be around you, because all you're going to be doing is trying to get them into Ponzi scams. So she was like, just treat it like a real business. There's people out there that want to make money from home. Get yourself some leads of people that have opted in to this information, and then go through the sales process. So I did that. And so my leader team or whatever, they were like, if you follow these steps, you'll be making $10,000 a month within a year. And I'm like, yes, that's what I want. $10,000 a month within a year. Then I can make my movie. Because it's still about making my movie at this point. I had the screenplay all written.
Okay, so that was going on the side where you constantly iterating. It's incredible to see
I wrote,
that this was all for this
It was all for the movie. Yeah, in the end, I was like, I wrote the movie script. and I went through this like film school, sort of like budget film school training thing on a book that basically was Dov S.S. Simmons wrote, like From Reel to Deal. And it's just like 800-page book about like how to make a movie from start to finish. Really teaches you all about the film business. So I was doing that and I wrote the screenplay, and I'm like, nah, I got to make 50,000 to make this movie. And all these internet scams are like my way of trying to get this movie made. And then so like the movie The Secret comes out, right? And it's like all about vision boards and goal setting and, you know, thinking of good vibrations, all this stuff. And I was like really into that. I was like, okay, this can work if I really focus on these goals. So I set a whole bunch of goals. I wrote myself the checks like they do, because there was also this thing like where Jim Carrey wrote himself a check for $1 million, and he dated it. You know, when he first got to Hollywood, he like went to the Hollywood Hills, and he was like looking over the city, and he wrote himself a check and put it in his wallet, so that he would always be focused on his goal of like making it in Hollywood as a successful comedian. So I'm like, you know what, there's stories where this can actually work, where you can focus your mindset so much that on your goals that you can just make it happen. So I did that. I started like writing myself checks and keeping them on my vision board and in my wallet. I got my grandmother to like write me a check write a check that I wrote to her. Basically, it was like for $25,000 to pay off her mortgage. So that was like one of the big goals that I had, was like to help my family get out of poverty and like help them get out of like debt slavery, because nobody really had much in Cape Breton, and my grandparents were on this like really shitty mortgage that the bank got them locked into. And I was like, I want to help them with that. So I kind of had all these goals set. RV, that was a big one. I really wanted an RV. Just eventually I was thinking 10 years ahead, I want kids and I want an RV and I want to be able to like travel back and forth to Cape Breton and all these things. So I focused on all that stuff, and I started really diving into executing what they told me to do. And I did it, man. Like a year went by, and I was like literally had like 150 people that I had recruited in this kind of ethical way, more than just like, oh, these gas pills are going to save you. It was more about like, this is a business. The products are priced in a way that is that's overpriced. It's like fully transparent. What I was doing anyway was like, we're trying to just earn money. If you also want to earn money, don't be going recruiting your friends and family. Treat it like a real business. And that was how I did it, right? But at the end, so I had like 100 and some people, and I got the attention of my upline guy who was like, you know, making 150 grand a month or something off this business. And he's like seeing my pyramid grow. And he's like, who's this kid from Canada? Okay, I'm gonna go meet him. So I met up with him, and he's like, you know, started helping me out. And then I started my own lead business, because I was only making $2,000 a month. So I had gotten some success with it, but I wasn't making $10,000 a month. I was making $2,000 a month, and I'm like, this is kind of like, did I get scammed again here? Like, you guys told me a year ago that if I did everything right, I'd make $10,000 a month. Now I'm making $2,000 a month.
It
like,
seems
this
like
is
you got
not
a lot of people too. I mean,
I did.
Like,
yeah.
I personally, a lot of the people that I ended up like bringing in, like they got like, most of them got like almost no one in. And then like, I mean, I got like a decent amount, but it sounds like you got way more. I wasn't doing it for, you know, like that much commitment for a year. I was also, you know, in school at the time.
Yeah, I mean, like I was full time basically doing this, and then I'd work at the gas station to make ends meet, and I'd listen to like self-improvement books and like business books and stuff while I was working to kind of like learn more about really entrepreneurship and business and money mindset. And then I found like Robert Kiyosaki books, like Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I started learning about the value of the dollar versus the value of gold and real estate, and I started like learning a little bit about investing rather than just hustling and making money. And so it was kind of like up leveling myself about money generally. And so I was like kind of pissed off that, you know, even though I was finding all these people on the internet and I was like working hard, calling them, getting them set up with the same structure that I was, you know, put into, I realized like this isn't actually a home-based business. Like I'm actually just working for this company. And like, it's kind of a scam that they're telling me that I'm my own boss. Like I'm not my own boss. You guys are my boss. I'm working for you. You're paying me. So I'm like, all this stuff that they had taught me about like being my own boss, I'm like, why don't I actually just be my own boss? Like, what's the point of me working as a contractor for a network marketing company if I'm not going to make all the money that I'm like putting all this energy into? So I started my own lead company. That's what I did. I started generating my own leads for network marketing. So like for people who wanted to make money online. And I did the same mistake I did with the call center. I emailed, so I had 2 email lists that I was saving through like on a notepad, just of like people in my group, right? Like people that I recruited and my, leaders or whatever. And then I had another one that I had scraped from the internet of all the email addresses that had Vima in them, including the CEO of the company and all the other people on the pyramid. Like, and I don't know why I did that. I was just like, in case I ever want to network with them or talk to them, I want to have their email addresses.
Yeah.
So I launched my own lead business where I was like generating leads online for people that want to work from home. And I meant to copy them email sheet from my own group and email everybody and say like, hey, if you want to, because it was like $2 a lead if you bought it from the other guy that was like started his own lead business. But from I was like, oh, I'll do it for $1.50. If you guys want leads, like I'm gonna start selling them. I'll do it for $1.50. But I emailed everybody at Vima, so including the CEO of the company, BK Barreco, and then they literally fired me from being my own boss. So they fired me from being my own boss.
You were never your own boss, right there.
Yeah, it was like I got fired from being my own boss. Like, how does that make sense?
Written them an email, being like, I didn't know I could be fired from being my own boss at this company.
I did. Like, I got pissed off. I was like, I quit actually, because they threatened to fire me from being my own boss. That's really what it was. They were like, this is your first strike, one more strike, and you're out, type of thing. And I'm like, wait, you can fire me from being my own boss? Like, I quit. I'm not doing this anymore. This is stupid. Like, I didn't know that I could get fired from this. Like, I thought I was like building myself this future and all this crap. And so they got like, oh, well, don't quit. Like, we can work it out, because I was helping them with volume on like my upline guy. He was like, oh, this guy's actually like making me like $10,000 a month, because I was my volume was enough for him to qualify for all these other bonuses in the pyramid structure. And because I quit, it was like he was kind of like, no, don't quit. But I'm like, this is stupid. I want to like actually make a real business. I realize now this is a scam. It's not my own boss. I'm just working for these guys. And plus, you told me I was making $10K a month, and I'm not. I'm going to start doing my own real business. Like, I've read all these books. I've went through all this training. It helped me a lot. I appreciated that. Gave me the right mindset and the right framework of setting goals and stuff. But no thanks. This network marketing stuff's not for me. I'm going to like actually start a business. And that's when Facebook opened up the API. When they were starting to gain popularity, they opened up the API to be able to build apps. And if you remember being on Facebook in the early days, it was a lot of like zombie bite games and like just Farmville. Drawing on each other's walls. Even before Farmville, it was like basic stuff, like just slapping people, like, and that would go viral. Or zombies, like you bite somebody and then now they're a zombie, and then like they bite you and now you're a zombie. It was just little simple games that were just spreading like wildfire all over Facebook when they opened the API. And there was a developer forum where all these like indie developers and coders and people would just kind of chat and work with each other and build stuff on Facebook. And it was like this guy from Vima that was my upline was like, hey, I saw you left. Why'd you leave? And I told him the story. And he's like, okay, listen, if you ever want if you're going to start a real business, I want to be involved with it. I kind of like your hustle. I want to help you out. So I'll angel invest in your stuff. And then it was like, I was like, I have like 5 ideas right now if you actually want to do that. So this guy started basically like paying my monthly bills for me to work on these ideas. And we had this like 50-50 handshake agreement where whatever businesses I got into or whatever things I did, he would help fund it. And then we'd be 50-50 on it, and he'd like do the books and stuff, and I just focused on the ideas and building these things. So it was kind of like it was a good arrangement at the beginning for me, because I was like, okay, finally I can like actually start a business myself, not get scammed by something that's a pyramid scheme that's going to get shut down, or some guy that's lying to me about the relationship that I have with my paycheck. And so I started Facebook businesses. Like I started a bunch of Facebook apps, and like probably 15 or so different app ideas I had built up. One of them was like an affiliate marketing thing. It was like taking all that stuff I learned from the internet. I put it on Facebook. We got a whole bunch of people, probably like 50,000 people joined that app, that Facebook app. And they were like doing offers and getting paid to read messages and stuff like that. But then I came up with one that was like a game. And I'm like, okay, I have this game idea I really want to do. It'd be like a couple $1,000s to get made. So I found a developer, reworked the deal with my investor guy to be like a third on this game if it worked, because the guy wanted some money, the coder guy. I was like, I don't have any money. Will you take Ponzi vitamins? And he's like, no, I don't want Ponzi vitamins. He's like, I want some money. I'm like, well, how about shares? If this works out, we'll split the profits. And he's like, okay, I'll do that. And it was a guy from Halifax, actually. This young guy from Halifax. So we started this game, and it went nuts. We got like 1 million players in the first month.
What?
Yeah,
What was the name of the game?
It was like a knockoff of like Roll Up the Rim to Win, but digitally. Like, you know how now they have Roll Up the Rim to Win on an app?
I actually don't know what that is.
Okay, so in Canada, Roll Up the Rim to Win is this like national coffee cup game that we play once a year that everybody's obsessed with, and it's like Tim Hortons is the big coffee company, right? Like Timmy's. Mm-hmm. Ah, good coffee.
I'll take a sip as well.
So Timmy's is this national coffee company that is like culturally part of Canada. Tim Hortons at this point, and the Roll Up the Rim to Win is this contest they do once a year. That's kind of like the McDonald's Monopoly game where you peel the tabs off.
Yeah.
But you just roll the rim up. It's like it's like a lottery game basically. You roll the rim up and you can win prizes. So you can win like donuts and free coffees, or $10 or $50. Like there's all these different prizes, and the grand prize is like a new car. So everybody plays this game, and it's like a cultural thing. So I was like, what if I just like take that and put it on Facebook as like a virtual version of like Rolling Up the Rim, like a coffee cup game, like a Facebook coffee cup game. And it went nuts. Like people loved it. There's like 1 million people downloaded this app and started playing it. So that was actually, and because I was into affiliate marketing, I had it like integrated with ads so that people could earn more of the fake cups by watching ads or by doing an ad or something. And people were just going nuts over it. They were like doing tons of advertising, like watching tons of ads and filling out surveys and all this stuff to get more of these fake cups. And I'm like, wow, people really love this fake cup thing. And eventually it kind of like peaked. Like it got really viral. It went viral in Canada on Facebook, and then it peaked. And there was about 100,000 people a month that started playing this game. And they started asking to buy the cups. And I was like, you want to spend real money on virtual items? Seriously? And we were like, okay, we'll sell you fake cups. Okay.
What year was this again?
2007.
Wow. Okay.
Maybe 2008. So I was like, it was 2007.
Time.
It was brand new. Like, I was on like the bleeding edge of the social gaming thing. I just, right time, right place, was focused on these goals I had. I just laser focused on like making this money to make the movie, helping my family, getting the art, like all these things. I really wanted to make this $10,000 a month thing real, and actually got up to $10,000 a month within 6 months of quitting the scam stuff and stopped and exiting
if there's ever
the
a
Ponzi's.
reason to quit the scams and Ponzi's, it's hey, you can actually do it in the real world without having to do that.
So then I I had this sort of successful thing. We started actually selling and raising money for like charities. We would do like these branded campaigns with like Big Brothers Big Sisters and like pink cups for like the Pink Ribbon Foundation, and we did green cups for the David Suzuki Foundation for like conservation. So we ended up donating like $100,000 to all these charities while I was making money myself as well, selling people cups. So it was like kind of a really cool thing. I learned about like how people can really value digital stuff. And we had a currency in the game. It was like rim bucks, I think we called it, or something like that. And people were actually treating this thing like a real currency. And they were like on the forums, because we had a forum where people could talk about the game, and people started like getting married. Like there was like 2 people that got married from the game forums, and
Wow.
like somebody got a tattoo of the logo of the game. People would start to like, it became part of their lifestyle, like this digital game thing that had no real value outside of the game. And they started selling each other their currency and their items, because we would make it so that they could collect like stamps and stuff, and like you had to get all the stamps and you get more fake money in the game every time you logged in. So it was all these like gamification things of like trying to get people to like make the new leaderboard. Like we had a leaderboard up where people were like making the most every time they logged in. And all this stuff was new. It was like cutting edge. But, you know, we were a small indie, like small team, right? So eventually that kind of like died off as the bigger companies got involved. But I remember a couple times, one of the things was PayPal didn't understand what was happening because there was a bunch of us that were started making all this money and we were using PayPal. And PayPal, it was notorious for just canceling our accounts and freezing our money. And all these game developers on the forums were complaining about like having like $50,000 just arbitrarily locked up by PayPal with no word about why they did it. And like, oh, it's just like 6 months review process on your account. So you're just like locked up. So I learned all these valuable lessons doing that for like a year about centralization, again, about the risks of using centralized payment processors. I learned about how to manage like and how hyperinflation worked because I accidentally hyperinflated my game currency and I caused this chaos problem. Like I did a promotion where people could like get like 50% off or something like that, and then I do, oh, this worked really well, a lot of people paid, and I did 100% off, and so I kept inflating the game currency, not thinking about the total supply, and eventually it caused this like hyperinflation of prices in the game items. And I was like, what did I do? I ruined the economy. So I'm acting like a virtual central banker trying to manage the economy of these 100,000 people playing this game. People are complaining like, I had 1 million Brimbucks like last month and they were worth like $200 and now they're only worth $50. What did you do? You ruined the game. I'm like, no, I hyperinflated the game.
Well, hopefully they learned a valuable lesson from it, you know?
I know.
Before the real world.
I know I did. Like that was my first sort of realization that people could really value something digitally that did just purely live digitally and didn't have any tie to the real world and didn't have any outside value. Like I didn't have this idea that like you could make money doing this game. It was nothing like there was no like making money or earning yield or any of that stuff. It was literally just for fun. It was like, you're just going to play this. It's just a game. That's it. It's just a game. And you can pay if you want, but there's no value here. It's just a game. And people were spending like $1,000, $2,000 a month playing this game. And like this blew my mind. I just didn't understand it. But eventually I realized like I guess people can really value virtual things and digital things. And I learned a valuable lesson about not trusting centralized third parties again with PayPal. I learned a lesson about not hyperinflating and like the problems with hyperinflating and printing too much money. Like literally I learned like that whole thing about printing too much money because I did it myself. And then I started, for the first time in my life, I started actually like having extra money. I actually had some savings. Like I'd finally accomplished this goal. And then I was like, what do I do with this money? Because now I've learned from network marketing about like money and the value of gold and real estate and, you know, the dollar declining in value over time from these books that they had me read, like reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad and watching documentaries about like the history of money and stuff like that, because a lot of the people in the network marketing industry are kind of like gold bugs. I found there's a lot of people into gold and like they were kind of like libertarians in a way. So I got introduced to libertarianism and Ron Paul, and then I went down the Austrian economics rabbit hole during this whole time and learned about how the dollar was not backed by anything anymore. And all of that stuff made me realize, okay, now I have some extra money. I don't want to put it into stocks because Occupy Wall Street was happening around, you know, this was like a few years of a period.
Yeah. Was this around like you said 2007, 2008, like when you were having these thoughts of you finally had made some money, you're wondering like how to protect it? Is this
around 2009
pre or post great financial crisis?
During the collapse. It's like the banks were failing and my game was still making money, and I realized that during a recession people want entertainment, like they want to escape their problems. So we had a lot of success with the game where a lot of people were losing money with their businesses and stuff. In the real world, in the virtual world, like business was going good for me. So I was kind of like learning about the banks failing and the problems with money and the bailouts from listening to like libertarians and like people like Ron Paul at the time, learning about the history of money. I'm like, yeah, this is very much like a Ponzi scam, the dollar itself.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I was so naive about things. When I learned about the dollar, I think that was like one of the final straws for me as a skeptic. Like, I became skeptical of everything once I learned about how much of a scam the dollar and the bailouts were.
It's crazy.
And like, I was like, this from now on, I'm not gonna like automatically trust things, or I'm gonna at least be more skeptical of things. I'm gonna try to, and then it was like I made my movie in 2008. I actually made the movie. We went and we shot this
Let's go.
comedy horror movie in the forest for 21 days. We spent in the woods just like hacking people up, and it had like a real crew of like 20 people. It was a really awesome, fun time. And
What's the movie
then it was
called?
like it's called The Legend. It's called The Legend of the Psychotic Forest Ranger.
The Legend of the Psychotic Forest Ranger.
Yeah.
What year did you produce it finally?
We filmed it in 2008. I didn't get it finished until 2011
Okay.
because I had at this point I'd been working to make this movie, but then I inadvertently became an entrepreneur and actually had a successful business that I had to focus on because it was actually making like $100,000 a month and had a couple employees now and all these moderators and all these expenses. So I was probably making like 20 grand a month, and I'm like, I need to focus on this business because this is like a once in a lifetime opportunity. Like, I actually succeeded here. So I know I want to make this movie. So I did make it, but I was like, I can't focus 100% on it. So I'm going to like do two things at once. I'm going to finish the movie while I'm running this business and trying to actually become an entrepreneur and figure out what to do to like protect my value that I'm getting. So I built a house, like, you know, I was learning about real estate and stuff. So I got a contractor and I built a house and I did P90X because I was like, we were trying to get pregnant, my wife and I. It was like 2 years of not being able to get pregnant. So I was like, you know, maybe I need to get healthy because I was making all this money, but I gained all this weight because I was just like at the desk all the time, thinking I was eating healthy. I'm really just shoveling like sugar and carbs into my face, thinking I'm eating healthy. Lots of yogurt and granola and stuff like that. Like, I'm eating healthy, gaining 20 pounds.
Granola is one of those things that, oh my gosh, everyone thinks granola is so healthy, but when you actually look at the nutrition facts of granola, it's just
sugar.
Yeah, it's just straight sugar. Also,
if you're
one last quick question on the movie: is it on like a streaming platform, or is it something where people can just buy it on like on a website or something?
I think somebody uploaded it to YouTube. So if you want to check YouTube
awesome.
for it, I think there's a full copy of it on YouTube. But okay. I was actually
I really
like,
want to watch it now. I'm like after hearing the whole backstory, it's like, how can I not watch this movie? like after all the work you put in for all these years.
Yeah, I mean, I was part of the file sharing movement as well back then. I was really into like torrenting and the idea of like anti-authoritarianism and like this concept of like the Hollywood complex was trying to make me feel bad for downloading movies because I couldn't afford to be buying movies. Like, I'm poor. I'm this poor kid, so movies were too expensive to buy, so I would download them. And software too. Like, I couldn't afford to be buying Photoshop and all this stuff. It's like $100 for a piece of software. I can just get that for free online. So I was like, very much, before I made money, I was very much against the idea of like being profit meat for some big corporation. Like, I was kind of like, I do not feel bad for sharing stuff with people. And so I was really into that file sharing thing. And when I made my movie, I was like, I'm just going to release this for free and maybe monetize it through affiliate marketing or something like that, like donations. If people want to pay me $2 or something, then they can do that. So I found this platform called Vodo, which was like this guy, Jamie King, was doing basically Kickstarter before Kickstarter ever existed, and it was like it was like a mixture of Patreon and Kickstarter, but it was like using BitTorrent, vo.do, and you could, like, as a creator, you could upload your work, and then people could like donate to you whatever they wanted. And he was using Bitcoin at the time in 2011 because he made this film called Steal This Film, and Steal This Film was like all about the file sharing wars and the piracy wars. and it was like covering it from the perspective of internet culture and cypherpunk culture instead of just from the perspective of like, oh, you're bad for downloading movies off of BitTorrent. And so he created a sort of like ethical business model around creators opting in to allow people to file share, and if they want to do like value for value kind of thing, like here's the movie, send me some money if you like it, or subscribe to my email list, or whatever you want to do, share it, you know, things like that. So back in 2011, he was doing that, and I had already found Bitcoin by that time, because in 2011, early 2011, I had finished, like, done a few rounds of P90X at that time. I had my new baby. I had just built my house, and I had some extra money from the game company laying around. I'm like, okay, the stock market is a Ponzi scam. The banks are going to blow up because they're over leveraged, toxic nonsense happening there. I don't understand it. I don't want to put money into the stock market. It's going to blow up. Like, all these people are like getting bailed out for taking all this excessive risk. So I don't want to be involved in that. And I don't care about stocks anyways. I was like, I want to probably buy some gold, because that's what is going to hold its value over time. So I started thinking about like the extra money that I had, which wasn't a lot, because at this point we're 3 years into my game company. It's like kind of down to like 20,000 players a month. And it's like the big companies like Zynga had launched Farmville and stuff, so it was like sucking away all the players to these bigger, more well-produced games. And I was kind of like, my business was on the decline. I'd spent most of my money building my house, and like, I was like, whatever I can do with this leftover money, I don't want to lose it in the stock market, and I don't want to lose it to purchasing power being inflated away by keeping it in cash. So I'm like, I'm going to get some gold and silver. And then so I had like went on YouTube and was searching like how to get gold and silver in Canada, and there was this guy, Da Vinci Jeremy was his name, and he was like advising people on how to buy gold and silver in Canada and how to avoid paying the extra tax, because if you buy gold ingots, there's no tax on it if you have the right import code on the package. But if you don't put the import code on the package, they're going to charge you an extra 15%. So I'm like, trying to save a buck. So I'm like, I don't want to pay that extra money. So I'm like, how do I avoid import taxes importing gold and silver to Canada? It was like little bits of gold. I'm not like buying like massive amounts. I just Cape Breton mentality, right? Save a buck, got to make sure I don't overpay. So he's like explaining how to do this, and then he's like, and by the way, there's this new digital gold that you should probably also buy called Bitcoin, and it's like modeled after gold, but it's digital. It's decentralized. There's no centralized third party. It's a capped limit, so it can't be inflated away, and it's released by some anonymous person who's disappeared, so nobody can change the rules. And I was like, oh my god, this is amazing! Like, I can actually get digital gold. Like, this is like e-gold, but there's no company. This is like, I can't hyperinflate away my game currency anymore, like, because or they can't hyperinflate away the money like the central banks do, and like I did with my game, because there's no way to change the code of the money supply. Like, this is perfect. It's deflationary, it's disinflationary, and I can just run the software on my computer and like mine these things. I'm like, sign me up. This is amazing, because I'm like, people are spending thousands of dollars a month on virtual coins on my stupid game. Imagine if people actually start to adopt Bitcoin. So it was like the perfect
you had like the perfect background for understanding the value of Bitcoin early on.
Yeah, all these lessons I learned getting scammed on the internet, and learning about why dollars and why centralization is a risk, and how PayPal can steal your money, and what a Ponzi scam is, and like all these things, getting scammed quite a bit. I found Bitcoin at like the perfect time for myself to recognize the value of it. And so I started mining some. I set up a mine in my basement. I started getting a bunch of graphics cards, and by this time, like, the difficulty had gone up quite a bit. So it was $5 when I heard about Bitcoin from this video. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to take 30%, 33%, put it in gold, silver, and Bitcoin. And then I don't know what's going to win. If Bitcoin takes off, it could be worth $1,000 someday. So I was like, all right, I'm going to split it up. So I got in. By the time I got my mining equipment set up, like a month later, I got the graphics cards and finally figured out how to set it up. And bought some Bitcoin. I had to get money onto the exchange, so I had to go through like another shady third-party payment processor who would then wire money into this like site Trade Hill, which is like one of the ways to buy Bitcoin back then. The price went up to $10. So I'm like, shit, I'm too late. Like this thing's already up. I'm like, oh, I'm not early enough.
Oh, the common tropes of the Bitcoiners. Everyone who comes in always thinks that they're so late. Even then. So for everyone who's listening now, like it's the same type of thing. Like we are still so early. Like it is unbelievably early still.
Well, so me not being a trader or an investor, I was like an entrepreneur with like hustle culture mentality and trying to become more of a long-term thinker by like learning about Austrian economics and the history of gold and stuff like that. I was like, I guess, you know, I'm going to sell this if it goes up because everybody says sell half on a double or sell half if your value goes up and then you're playing with house money. That was the common trope, right? So I didn't know anything about risk management, portfolio management, or anything like that. Bitcoin actually in the month or two after, it went up to like $30. So I got in at 10 and it went up to 30. I was like, holy crap, I'm a genius. Like I just doubled my money here basically if I take half out and then I can keep some for later if whatever happens. So I sold half my Bitcoin at $30. Stupidest mistake I ever did, selling half my Bitcoin for $30.
Hey,
so
you
like,
locked in those gains though. You locked in those
I locked
gains.
in those juicy gains.
Yeah. The rest is house money.
Yeah, so it's house money. It literally became house money. Like I've since purchased houses for all of my family members so they could live in these houses. So it literally became house money. But you know, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing in terms of managing. So I bought the gold and the silver and the Bitcoin. So the Bitcoin that I kept, you know, fast forward to now, the silver is down 40% over 12 years. The gold is up like 30% over 12 years, and the Bitcoin's up like 300,000%.
Yeah,
so,
this was back in like 2011.
2011, yeah. Like
oh
I literally bought the generational top of silver at like $50 an ounce because everybody was FOMOing about silver. They're like, silver's going to $1,000 an ounce. Like the banks are collapsing.
Yeah.
Like the people are going to fly back into like metals because you can't inflate away metals. I was like, oh shit, I better get some of that. Silver is such a like shitty investment. Like, could you imagine being a gold bug? Like somebody that had gotten it all right and like identified all the risk in the banking system, the fiat money system, and you just put all your money into gold and silver, and then like you watch Bitcoiners become like this like wealthy class of like literally it's like libertarian principles and Austrian economics principles. But a lot of the libertarians and Austrian economics people, they closed their mind off to Bitcoin because it wasn't real. There was no intrinsic value. And it's just
the Peter
like
Schiffs of the world.
Yeah. It was like Peter Schiff, actually. I used to watch him because he was going to Occupy Wall Street and talking to people about capitalism and gold and things like that. And I was like, you know, I like this guy.
Yeah.
So he kind of like gave me conviction to buy gold and to question the dollar and to question the banking system. But, you know, like I just chose to value the idea that like digital money made sense because I was younger and I had these experiences. And to me, it was like I didn't trust third parties and I was like anti-authoritarian. So I was like, this makes a lot of sense. If the code is the thing that regulates this and no one can change the code of the monetary properties of Bitcoin, then I'm going to get some Bitcoin and like maybe it wins, maybe it doesn't. But so I had like, you know, got in early and even, you know, it went down to $2 after I got in. So I sold at 30 and it went down to 2 and I was like, this is so volatile. Like I had, at this point I had started 2 Bitcoin businesses. I kind of forgot about my game company for a little while. I started a Bitcoin business where I could make, say, like, you know, affiliate marketing stuff. I was like, with that, I'm like, okay, now you can do affiliate marketing but get paid in Bitcoins. So you sign up for Columbia House and I'll give you 2 Bitcoins. It was like that type of thing. And so it was hilarious because unfortunately the lesson I learned was that it was so volatile and I had priced everything, I think it was in dollars. So I owed people too much money.
That could go real bad real quick.
Yeah. I priced it poorly. It wasn't fluctuating with the price of Bitcoin. I had everything fixed. So it was like I just ended up owing people more money than I had made on the affiliate offer thing. I ended up getting like a lot of signups back then. Got some traction in the Bitcoin community, but eventually it was just like, this is so volatile. I can't actually dedicate my life into this right now, because I don't know if it's going to like back to $1 or if it's going up to $50. It's like really hard to like make a living off of this thing. And I didn't have a lot of money at the time, right? I was kind of on the decline with my entrepreneurship journey, still making some decent money, able to pay my bills and stuff, but like I got to focus on like making money again, and I'll get back into Bitcoin when it's more built up, like when there's more people involved and it's more stable. And so I was like, I'm just going to keep whatever I have and then sell off my mining equipment and make back the money that I put into all of that. So I only mined for like, I don't know, like 6 months or something like that. And I was making like 2 Bitcoin a day. So I was like, this sucks. Like, this is only like making me like $10 a day. Like, it's what a waste. I'm like paying more in power than I'm making in Bitcoins. So I'm like, 2 Bitcoin a day. That's so stupid. Why did I waste all my time doing this?
Oh my god!
But thankfully, like,
I love the stories from like the early days when just people are talking about it in terms of just like, oh yeah, I was just mining a couple Bitcoin. What a waste of time.
Yeah. Like in my house, in my basement, mining 2 Bitcoin a day. Like, this, what a waste of time. But so I like eventually I got back into Bitcoin, and say like by 2012, it was floundering around in terms of price and stuff, but I was still following it kind of news. I was following news casually, but I got back into the gaming business, and I started like an iPhone game company. And in 2013, like late 2013, I had scaled up my game company. I had a gym. Like I took over an old women's gym that had been abandoned.
You bought a gym?
Like, I leased it from this company that was going to demolish the building. It was like nobody wanted to move into it because they were going to demolish the building. But I was like, I'll move into it for as long as it's standing, because it was awesome. It was like there was a sauna and a steam room and like 5 showers, and it was like this
incredible.
The aerobics room was like a perfect spot to put all the computers. It was like this really nice spot, and all these treadmills. So we would do P90X in the office for an hour a day. And I scaled it up to like 19 people, raised some money from some investors from Hong Kong, like on a miracle. I managed to like raise some money and keep the thing alive. And we scaled up. We made like 200 games over 2012 and 13. And I got 2 or 3 of them into the top 10 iOS free app store. And I started thinking about, how do I integrate Bitcoin into gaming? And I made this game called Kung Fu Cookie Clicker, which was like kind of the game Cookie Clicker, if you've ever played that one.
No, I haven't. What's that?
So it's just a tapping game where you just continually tap, then you upgrade your cookie stuff. You get a grandma and she taps for you. It's just like it's called an idle game. So I was like, what if you've like got little Bitcoins out of the cookies when you tap the fortune cookies when you tap them, and use chopsticks? So I was like, I'm gonna make Kung Fu Cookie Clicker where Bitcoins come out of it. So I started trying to integrate Bitcoin into gaming, and then like Bitcoin started ripping again. I'm like, oh shit, like, okay, this thing actually is back to life, like quite a bit. So I started being like, oh, I'm actually gonna start seeing if I can buy some more Bitcoin with the company treasury. So I started like putting money into Bitcoin.
The early sailor right here.
Yeah, I was like, I'm gonna start buying some Bitcoin with the company money, and like thought I was a genius, because I got 19 people working for me, and I was making more money by myself just buying Bitcoin on Mt. Gox. So I was like, I'm smart. Like, I can trade this thing. I'm familiar with Bitcoin now. I've learned more about money. I'm not going to sell my Bitcoin like I did last time. That was dumb. I learned that lesson. So now I'm just going to buy Bitcoin and hold on to it. Maybe I'll sell it if it goes way up, but I'm not going to wait for 2x. I'm not going to sell it all.
Yeah.
I'll just sell little bits. So I was like learning lessons. But then, so I put all my Bitcoin, not all of it, but I put like the company Bitcoin, and I put half of my rest of my Bitcoin in Mt. Gox to start trading it. And I like got back into the scene. I started I rejoined like the IRC channels where all the insiders were hanging out. Obviously, we know what happens. Mt. Gox goes under. I'm listening to the insiders, because I'm literally like in an IRC chat with the owner of Mt. Gox and Roger Ver, like these Bitcoin insiders at the time. And Roger's saying like, it's fine. I saw the statements. It's just banking issues. Don't panic. Don't take your money out. And then Mark Karpelis is like, yeah, this is not an issue with solvency or anything like that. It's just we got to upgrade the code. We got to get better banking relationships. So I'm thinking like, well, I have inside information. These guys are literally like trusted in the space and telling me there's nothing wrong. Everybody's just panicking. So I put more money into Mt. Gox to buy cheap Bitcoin, because at that point, the Bitcoin in Mt. Gox was trading at a discount. So I'm like, I can double my Bitcoin here if I actually put more money in and buy Bitcoin at half the price. Like, I can double my Bitcoin.
And by so this point, had they cut off the withdrawals, but they were telling you that on the okay, so that makes sense. On the inside, they were telling you that, but then,
so you found somebody else that had like somebody else who had money on the database of Mt. Gox, and you sent it to them directly, and then they transferred it to your account, and then you're basically buying Bitcoin at half off. So I just felt like, oh, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity again to get back the Bitcoin I sold. You know, like I can get Bitcoin at half off, and that was like this another stupid lesson for me to like learn about risk management and FOMO, because I had this like FOMO and trusting insiders. So like all these lessons that these things that Bitcoiners say, it's not tropes. It's literally like lessons we've learned. Not your keys, not your coins. Don't trust, verify. The value of decentralization, counterparty risk management, but especially those two, not your keys, not your coins, and don't trust, verify. Just like Bitcoin was created so that you don't have to trust the middleman and that you can verify everything. So the fact that like it took me years to personally learn that message, I mean, it's understandable why people would get sucked into Celsius and why people would get sucked into BlockFi. Because if you don't learn these lessons of don't trust, verify, and not your keys, not your coins, how will you like, I mean, without the knowledge of, I got ripped off by trusting people and I got ripped off by having counterparty risk when something happens, then, I mean, I really don't blame people for believing insiders, because it's easy to, like, that's the whole thing about a snake oil salesman. Like they can convince a lot of people with their, you know, magnanimous personalities or whatever that they're telling the truth. And it wasn't until I read this, you know, I learned these lessons. I got wrecked again. Like I'm like the early, you know, the early settler that's like trying to go to find the new land or whatever, and they're in their wagon, and then they get like gangrene and they lose a foot on the journey, and then the squirrels all come in and eat all their wheat, and they got no food, and they, you know, like I'm that guy that's like, oh, I'm like hanging off, barely got any limbs left, and I'm like, at least I got something, you know. Yeah. So I'm still here. I managed to like make all the mistakes, but my conviction on what Bitcoin could eventually be, my driving factor for Bitcoin was always like, this thing is better money. And no matter the mistakes I make, I need to just get more of it and continue to save in Bitcoin and try to get back at least get some back to what I lost. Because the price always runs away on you. And it's like, of course, it would have been better to buy Bitcoin at $1,000. Duh. and like, obviously, I should have bought Bitcoin, more Bitcoin at $200. I buy Bitcoin all the time, even still. Like I don't think ever going to get back to my Bitcoin high water mark where I had in 2011. That's fine. Like there's Jimmy Song has this, he identifies, I think he calls it price recency bias. And it's like when it's almost like unit bias, where somebody will go and they'll see the price of Bitcoin and then they'll see the price of Dogecoin and they'll buy Dogecoin because they think, what if Dogecoin goes to $10,000 or Ripple or whatever? Like that's unit bias. Price recency bias is a similar phenomenon in psychological sort of like pricing things, where you've seen the price of Bitcoin at $10,000 or $5,000. So at $25,000, you think like, no, it's overvalued because it was at $5,000.
Yeah.
So it's a really hard thing to wrap your mind around, to fundamentally understand where Bitcoin could go, and then to make the decision of like, do I buy now or do I wait? So, you know, it took a long time for me to like learn these lessons about like timing the market is a bad idea, and going all in on things is a bad idea. YOLO betting is a bad idea. Selling half your Bitcoin at once is a bad idea. So trusting
Yeah.
counterparties is a bad idea. Trading shitcoins is a bad idea.
Yeah.
Anything that's driven by fear of missing out typically is a bad idea. So there's a lot of lessons to learn, and unfortunately, like you said earlier, people will just have to learn these lessons because there's so many pitfalls out there, and unless you listen to somebody like myself who's been through and made all these mistakes, if you're just like me 10 years ago, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, wanting to make some money, getting excited by the idea of like, oh, I can make $1 million if I'm good at if I get lucky or if I pull the slot machine right or whatever, you may actually win, but you'll probably lose it all because you have bad habits and you haven't actually taken the time to learn about these things like risk management, counterparty risk, and like long-term thinking.
The rest of this conversation with Brad discusses the collapse of banking institutions and artificial intelligence. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it. And in the meantime, you'll love learning from Kyle's entrepreneurial journey, where he shares secrets of the entertainment industry with you that you won't want to miss.
Inflation is transitory.